Hello, this is Jane Becker again with another message for you today. Today we will be discussing the offer, form, and process of putting an offer together. Real estate is one of these things where you really need a written offer to present to the seller. Otherwise, the contract is not binding if it's not in writing. So the first thing you want to do is find an agent who would put together an offer for you that protects your interest. And today we're going to go over a few things that the offer should have to be able to protect your interest instead of the seller's interest. So let's start off with who's the offer going to. It's going to the owner of record, typically the seller. If you know the seller's name, you can put that down. Otherwise, you just put down owner of record. You put today's date, the date you're making the offer. You're putting down your name, your full legal name, and you put down the property address. Also helps to know what county it is in, but it's not necessary. When you buy a home, you actually buy the land that real estate is on, and all the buildings that just happen to be on that land. And then you put down the purchase price. You decide what is the best value for you, and you put down that price. When you put an offer in, you need to demonstrate to the seller and potentially the listing agent that you are capable of raising the funds to put the offer together, to go through the process and to buy that home. And the way you demonstrate it is by putting an earnest money deposit. You can put down any amount, but typically it's common to put down $500 or $1,000 depending on what you want to do. Obviously, the bigger the deposit, the bigger your interest in the property, and the better you look to the seller. After you do all of your inspections, you're going to sign a second document called purchase and sales. And at that time, you put down the rest of your deposit. Typically, if you're getting a loan for 3% down, you put down the rest of the deposit of 3%. If you're doing 5%, you can do that. If the property has a lot of interest, you certainly would want to put down as much as you can at purchase and sales to show the seller and the listing agent that you're very serious about buying that property. That money is potentially at risk. However, you will notice in your offer there will be other ways of basically getting your money back from the seller or the listing agent. The money is held in what's called an escrow account. Escrow account means that it's not going to be commingled with any other funds and will be there waiting for you when you are going to close on the property. At the time of the closing, you will get that money back to put towards the payment of the home, towards a down payment, or if you're doing no money down, that will be returned to you at the time of closing, or you could use it for closing costs or whatever is necessary for you to complete the transaction. So once you've done the purchase and sales, the next step is to close on the property, and at that point, you will put down the rest of your deposit. Now, if you're not a cash buyer, you typically have a contingency called the financial contingency or the mortgage contingency. In this particular contingency, or I'll call it the paragraph, you will outline when you will be applying for a loan, and typically I recommend within 7 business days that you would go and get the funds. It will outline what kind of financing you're going with, whether it's a conventional or an FHA or a VA loan. And then you will outline how much money you're going to be asking the bank and when the bank is going to give you what's called a commitment letter. A commitment letter from the bank basically is their final word whether or not they're going to give you the loan. It is very important that you watch that date, because one way to get out of the contract is if you don't get your financing in place. That commitment date is very important, so keep an eye on it. Make sure that you know from the bank prior to that date. Next paragraph should outline who's going to, what's going to be included with the purchase of your property. Typically, as your real estate agent, I ask for everything that's not a personal item. You certainly can negotiate on any of the following: a kitchen stove, a refrigerator, window treatments. By the way, window treatments means anything that's on the window, including the blinds, the shades, curtains, drapery, decorations, anything that are rods, for example. And then, as well as built-in microwaves, uh, washer and dryer. Sometimes we even ask for a riding lawnmower, fireplace tools, things like that. Typically, anything that's actually nailed or screwed in is expected to stay, such as shelving in closets, lighting fixtures. Unless otherwise stated, they will not be excluded. Or double negative, they will be included. The next paragraph, I include all of my addendums. The one thing you need to be aware of is if you have an addendum in your offer, an addendum actually overrides your offer. So it is very important that your attorney or your real estate agent reviews all of the addendums. I include several different addendums, including Addendum A, which is a disclosure form of anything that might pertain to your property, to the subject property. Addendum B, which is a lead paint notification form. Any property that is built prior to 1979 should have a lead paint disclosure form by Massachusetts state law. Addendum C is a listing sheet. Buyers and seller need to look over the listing sheet and verify the information to make sure that you both agree on what you're buying. Addendum D is my own personal agency disclosure form. It outlines my role in the process as a buyer agent and lets the seller and the listing agent know of our relationship and our agreement for compensation. There might be other addendums. If it is a condominium, I usually have an addendum called an Addendum E, which outlines all of the items that we would like to see prior to us signing the purchase and sales. I also have a language that protects my commission built into this paragraph so that the buyer is assured that his agent is going to get paid at closing. The next paragraph deals with the closing date. Every offer in real estate has to have a conclusion, and that is where you sign the paperwork, the deed is recorded, you get the keys, and then you can move in. At the next point, you make a decision on when you're going to sign the purchase and sales agreement. Depending on the situation, the typical signage of the purchase and sales agreement is done after all of your inspections are performed, and that takes about a few weeks after the offer is signed. So a typical purchase and sale agreement signing date would be in 2 weeks, 14 days. The next part is the home inspection. The home inspection contingency talks about the home inspection that you are prepared to do. You will then set up a home inspection and you have a certain period of time to do it in. Typically, it will be in 10 days. Sometimes it's sooner. It depends on what you and the seller agreed. The home inspection will include the following items: termites, pests, water quality and quantity, environmental, mold, and radon. You also need a septic or cesspool inspection. Hopefully, the seller has already prepared the house with that inspection in mind. If that inspection was performed, you have a right as a buyer to ask for what's called a Title V report. Title V report is a legal document, and your attorney should look over it, making sure that there are no surprises when you move in. The next paragraph deals with the broker's fees. The broker's fees are outlined in the offer so that the seller knows what they're netting. The buyer is paying the gross purchase price, and all of the real estate fees are included in that document. But the seller needs to know what they will be netting, outlining the seller's agent's and buyer's agent's fees allows the seller to know exactly how much they're going to go get away with at the closing table. So, the following language, the next paragraph deals with smoke detectors.